Welcome to Bridge Basics. Bill Jackie, Class 5, Strategies, Wednesday, April 10th, 2013. Keys for Success. It's clear from looking at the scoring that accuracy in bidding is a critical aspect of being a successful bridge partnership. You need to get to the game contract when the odds favor being there, and not only a game contract, the best game contract. You need to avoid overbidding when the odds are unfavorable. You need to punish the opponents by doubling them when they misbehave, but not doing it indiscreetly. You need to be able to reach a slam contract when it appears to be a success or odds on for being successful. But as you will soon learn, bidding is a language, and it's ruled by a strict and limited vocabulary, basically 1 through 7, clubs, diamond, heart, spades, no trump, pass, double, and redouble. That's the only words you can say. And they have to be increasing as they go up. So communicating is critical. The law of fast arrival, or the law of slow versus fast, if you will. Describing your hand to your partner and arriving at an optimal contract may require 3 or even more bids by each partner. In order to do that, you are restricted by the rules of the game, so you must bid slowly. Keeping the bidding low is critical in leaving room for the partnership to explore game or slam. So the implication is, with strong hands, go out of your way to keep the bidding low. Leave rooms to explore. Jumping, if you do them, describe very specific information about your hand and allow very detailed further discussion of your hands. With a weak, offensive-based hand, it's better to bid to the level of your hand immediately. The reason is it makes it difficult for your opponents. They don't know whether to double you or whether to bid on or get too high, and you eliminated room for them to pass information around. This action is referred to as preemption, or being preemptive. When you hold a very offensive-based hand, it is proper to bid up the hand immediately. Let's suppose you hold this hand. In spades, it's a great hand. In any other suit, not so great. In spades, you may take 4 or 5 tricks all by yourself. But if the opponents bid hearts, and that's likely what they'll do, you don't have any, somebody has some, your hand may be completely worthless. They may have a singleton spade or even a void. So open 2 spades. This is called a weak 2 bid. Common example of a simple preempt. The art of sacrificing, and it is an art. It may be profitable for you to intentionally overbid. You may also overbid just because you goofed, but I'm talking about intentionally bidding more than you think you can make. Why? Let's look at it from a scoring perspective. You may lose fewer points by overbidding and being set than by letting the opponents bid and make their contract. I'll prove this by going through 3 examples. First, let's look at a part score. Let's suppose that you can make 2 hearts, you and your partner, and the opponents can make 2 spades. Let's look at the possibilities. Let's suppose they bid 2 spades, you let them play at 2 spades. They make 50 plus 60 or 110 points. You lose 110, another way to put it. You're minus 110. Case 2. You bid 3 hearts and you're down 1. They only get 50 if you are not vulnerable. They get 100 if you're vulnerable. Now, case 3, you bid 3 hearts. You're doubled and you're down 1. It's very hard for the opponents to double you if you just overbid by a single trick. It's hard for them to tell. But let's suppose they double you. If you are not vulnerable, it's 100 points. You're still ahead. If you are vulnerable, it's 200 points. That is not as good as minus 110. you win in all cases but the last case. So if the opponents are really great players and they W and set you one, and you are vulnerable and they're not, you lose. It's obvious that as you look at these scores, being vulnerable is an area where you have to use a little more caution. And the place where you have the least caution is where they are vulnerable and you are not vulnerable. As we'll see in the next example or two. It's often difficult for them to figure out and W one trick. And by the way, if they're wrong, you just got a game score as well. So you really do well if they W and they don't succeed. Well, let's take it a little further. Let's suppose that you can make a game and so can they. They can make 4 spades, but we bid 5 hearts. And let's say for the sake of argument, they can set us 2 tricks. I'm also going to assume they'll W. When there's 2 tricks difference, they're more likely to W. They might still goof, but let's assume they W. Case 1, neither vulnerable. At 4 spades, they make 420. If they double us and set us 2 tricks, it's 300. That's a better score for us. Case 2, they're vulnerable. They get 620, we get 300. It's much better for us. Case 3, we are vulnerable and they are not. If we let them make 4 spades, they get 420. If they double us and we're vulnerable, it's 500. In this case, we lose. Case 4, they're both vulnerable. They get 620 for making 4 spades, 500 for setting us 2 tricks. Summary: you can overbid by 2 tricks if the opponents have game. Unless you are vulnerable, then you can only overbid by 1 trick. But with favorable vulnerability, you can actually overbid by 3 tricks. If you notice the scores up there. 500 versus 620. Now the ultimate example. They have a slam. They can make a small slam. You overbid by 4 tricks. Let's suppose that they can make 6 spades, but you bid on to 7 hearts and you're down 4. I'm going to assume they'll W. They're not idiots. They'll W. Case 1, neither vulnerable. They get 980 for making 6 spades. For setting us 4, they only get 800. If they're vulnerable, they get even more because of all the bonus points. They get 1430 and only 800 for setting us 4 tricks. Case 3, same example as with the game. When we're vulnerable and they're not, they only get 980 for their slam, but they double us and set us 4, it's 1100. Case 4, we're both vulnerable. If they make their slam, it's 1430. If they set us 4 tricks, it's 1100. We are better off. Summary: if they have a slam and you know they can make the slam, you can overbid by 4 tricks, unless you are vulnerable and they're not, and then you can overbid by only 3. But just like with the game, if you are have favorable vulnerability, you can overbid by 5 tricks and still come out ahead. So there are a lot of reasons to overbid, but do it intelligently. And you need to be able to judge, number 1, if they can make their bid, and number 2, how far you can go down. If you're wrong on either count, you could be a big loser. Tomorrow, we're going to get into the actual evaluation of your hand. The evaluation of the hand is critical in bridge in that it determines how valuable your hand is for the offense and for the defense. It's the first step in being an intelligent bidder. See you Thursday.